Have we dropped the rules-based order, though, when it comes to the Middle East? I want to turn our attention to the comments by Benjamin Netanyahu, because it is the only democracy in the region, Israel. He says that Australia, France, the UK are repeating the errors of World War II, that these nations trying to appease Islamist extremists, and that in fact we are trying to essentially appease something that will eventually reach our shores if we keep on this approach. Are we trying to appease terrorists with the recognition of Palestine?
Well, absolutely not. And I mean, there's a few things to say. I mean, firstly, the last thing I want to do is get into a back and forth with the Israeli Prime Minister. We seek to be friends with Israel. We always have, from the very moment that Israel was created. And we do very much acknowledge that Israel is a liberal democracy. But from the outset, Kieran, we have condemned the actions of Hamas. We couldn't have been clearer in condemning the actions of Hamas as a terrorist organisation. That was literally in the immediate aftermath of October 7, what our government was saying, as governments were around the world. And since then, we've acknowledged Israel's right to defend itself. And importantly, we've been consistently calling for the return of hostages to Israel and to their families. And in the context of a recognition of Palestine, we've made it clear that Hamas can have no role in a future Palestinian government. And we've also reiterated the importance of seeing a return of the hostages. But in the same breath, we have for a long period of time supported a two-state solution. And when I say we, I don't just mean this government, I mean successive governments throughout Australia's history. And to have that position is therefore to acknowledge the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people to statehood. And all we have done is follow through in relation to that. And we've done it in concert with like-minded countries around the world, countries like the United Kingdom, like Canada, like France.
But I guess the fundamental problem here is the disarmament of Hamas. You said again that that's a key part of it. They can't be part of any solution. But if it's not the IDF that gets rid of and demilitarises Hamas, who's going to do it? The Arab League don't put boots on the ground. They can't do it. The Israeli IDF has to do it, doesn't it? So to get to that core point that you say the government says Hamas can't be a part of it, but it's the IDF that's got to deliver that, doesn't it? So aren't they contradictory, the 2 points you're making?
No, and we've always acknowledged Israel's right to defend itself, and we have, as I say, from the very outset of this, been completely critical of Hamas, which I might say is a criticism that is shared by the Arab League and by the Palestinian Authority itself. But we have made it really clear that Israel does have a right to defend itself. We have also made it clear that the way in which Israel defends itself matters, that their international law has to be at the heart of this. And, go to the way in which you framed this question at the beginning. The rules-based order is absolutely central to the way in which we think about how we exercise our international voice in respect of this issue. International law has to matter here in terms of the way in which Israel engages in its own defence. And what we are seeing play out in Gaza is a humanitarian catastrophe. I don't think there can be any denying that. And what we need to see is an end to those hostilities. And again, we have consistently been calling for that, so that we see an end to the loss of innocent lives. We do see humanitarian aid flow to Gaza, and we see a return of hostages to their families in Israel. Now, we've been saying all of those. This is all of those points.
I want to put to you, though, the argument made by Benjamin Netanyahu, quoting Churchill. He says it's like feeding the crocodile and appeaser trying to feed the crocodile so it will eat him last, and saying that we're essentially feeding the crocodile of militant extremist Islam by the approach when it comes to Palestine, and that will eventually reach our shores as well unless we support his democracy, his efforts to obliterate Hamas.
Well, we have been really clear about our position in respect of Hamas. We condemn Hamas. We condemn Hamas as an organisation, and we condemn Hamas for the actions that it undertook on October 7th. But what we also need to acknowledge here is that we have supported a two-state solution for a very long period of time. That it is our view, and we do that because it is our view that there is no enduring peace in the Middle East unless there are two states. That is our position. And it has been the position of successive governments in this country, conservative coalition governments as well. And if you have that position, then you have to acknowledge the legitimate aspiration of the Palestinian people to statehood. That's what it is to say that you believe or support a two-state solution. Now, in terms of the timing of recognition, we've also said that it has to happen in a context with raising the issues that we have in terms of there not being roles for Hamas, in terms of the return of hostages, the end of hostilities, and the like. But we wanted to do it at a point where there is maximum impact in terms of progressing issues in the Middle East. And so we have done this in concert with like-minded countries, countries like Canada, countries like the United Kingdom, countries like France. And what we are doing is entirely consistent with the line of policy which has been held by governments of both persuasions in this country over a long period of time. And it's a position which is entirely consistent with wanting to see international law upheld, and it's entirely consistent with an utter condemnation of Hamas.
Just finally, I know you don't want to get into it. You said you don't want to get into a sort of tit for tat with Benjamin Netanyahu, but he says the Prime Minister's legacy will be tarnished by this, that history will see him as a weak leader because of his position on this, and he says you're rewarding terrorism. Specifically on those claims, can I get your response?
Well, obviously, I completely disagree with that. I think the positions that we have taken as a government, and positions that have been very much led by our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, have been ones that have been very principled in what has been a very, very difficult issue to navigate. It's been difficult for Australia, but it's been difficult for countries around the world because the issues that we see playing out in the Middle East are very complex. But I think when history judges the way in which we have navigated it, you will see that underlying every decision that we've made is a position of principle, is a deep ethical position, which is consistent with a long-held position of successive Australian governments in this country. We do condemn terrorism. We do condemn terrorist organisations such as Hamas. We do, though, acknowledge the legitimate aspiration of the Palestinian people to statehood, just as successive governments have in the past, and we are exercising our voice at a moment in time entirely consistent with like-minded friends and allies such as the UK, Canada and France.
Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles, live from Manila. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kieran.